Hi, I'm Amy Cross, and today we're going to talk about visiting your ancestral home. Who doesn't like to travel? And visiting the places that your family lived is extremely rewarding and a whole lot of fun. So today I'm going to provide you tips for best strategies to make a trip like this effective, because you don't want to spend a lot of money to travel somewhere and then not have it be very productive for you. And it requires some good, careful preparation in advance. And it's something that usually can't be done really quickly. So you're going to need to be kind of planning this further out. So we're going to talk a little bit about maybe why you want to go, what you want to achieve, and how to go about doing that. So there are really two different types of trips somebody might take. Oftentimes you can kind of combine them if you want to, but I want to kind of delineate the differences because you may not be a big genealogy researcher, but maybe you've found out that your family is like from Scotland and you want to go there and find out more about your family, and you are totally clueless on what you need to do to prepare for a trip like that. Or maybe you're somebody who is a diehard genealogist and you want some tips on how to better prepare for your trip. So both trips are actually in some ways similar, and that's why I want to put them in the same video, but there are some differences. So let's talk first about the person that maybe isn't the big genealogy enthusiast, but has learned about their family. They've always wanted to see the place where they were from, or at least that line of their family was from, and they're wanting to get started. The first thing I will tell you is you need more information. You can't just go with, my family is from Italy, or even maybe your ethnicity test is more specific. First of all, ethnicity tests are not always 100%. They're constantly changing, and you need to narrow it down to a more particular area so that you can find your family, you can actually be in the places that they lived, and you might be able to see the home that they lived in or things like that. Super exciting and a lot of fun. So what do you need to do? You need to build your family tree. Now, that may be something that you want to do yourself. And if that's something you want to get into and you haven't been doing it before, I'm going to put a playlist in the description of this video that is my Genealogy 101 playlist. And it basically gives you the steps that you need to take to think about how to build a family tree and how to begin your genealogy research. So let's say you've built your tree, you have some of the information that you need, and you're ready to start diving in a little bit deeper. Like we talked about a minute ago, this preparation time is really essential. So what are you going to do during the preparation time? This is whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're hiring somebody else. These are the things that you should be thinking about. The first thing is that you need to have a realistic goal. You need to think about, what do I want to do while I am wherever you're going? Now, I have a confession to make. There have been times when I have, at the last minute, happened to be in a particular area where my family lived, and I went without really being fully prepared. The trip was not very successful. Sure, it was still fun, and I'm glad that I did it, but I didn't see or do nearly the things that I could have had I been more prepared. So don't do that. Be prepared. The trips where I am prepared and I have a listing of the things that I wanted to do, what my objectives are, so much more effective. So first step, and this is true of genealogy research, you need to have an objective. And if you're paying a genealogy researcher, you want them to have an objective as well. Otherwise, they're flitting here, there, and everywhere else. And sometimes it's hard to set an objective. And that's something that some people really struggle with. But you want to do that. You want to think about what it is that you want to accomplish in a particular area. And because you're traveling, you may want to be thinking more about, instead of like focusing on a particular line, focusing on that particular area. What family members lived in that particular town or county? When did they live there? Who else lived there that was part of your family? Who did they interact with? What were their addresses? Did they own property? Things like that. You want to be thinking about those types of questions that you want to research while you're in this area. Maybe that isn't your cup of tea. Maybe that's not something that you want to do. And so I would recommend you hire a professional genealogist. Now, in that description, I'm also going to put some links to some places that you can go to find a professional genealogist that can help you out with your research. I would recommend that you find a genealogist that specializes in the area that you are particularly interested in. Now, if you're going to travel outside of the United States or outside of wherever you live, outside of the country where you live, you want to find somebody that is living in the place that you're interested in. 1, they can help you with language issues. 2, they know the area so much better than anybody else would. And 3, they're going to know of record sets that are available there that may not be available online. And so they can really provide a lot of helpful information. My stepdad went back to Europe and he hired a professional genealogist who helped him out. They took him to the home where his family had lived. They gave him so much information that if somebody didn't really know that particular area, they may not have been as successful. So particularly if you're going out of your country, I would recommend that you find somebody that lives in the area that you are interested in. So even if you're doing this yourself, you still might want to consult a professional genealogist. And the reason I say that is they're going to be aware of things that perhaps you aren't. Even if they don't live in the area, they can review the information that you've gathered and they may help you identify some things that maybe you hadn't thought of. You don't necessarily have to pay a ton of money for a big project. Maybe you could just hire them to do a Zoom call with you and review the information that you have and go from there. Newsflash, I am actually going to start doing Zoom consultations at a fairly inexpensive cost. I'm going to do some on a group level so that a group can answer questions and learn from one another. And then I'm going to also do some individual ones. And the details for that are in the show notes in the description below. So if that's something that interests you, check that out. Now, if you're hiring a professional genealogist, you gotta give them some time. They may have a backlog of work. They're going to need time to do some research. They're going to need time to be looking into some things. And you may end up finding out that your family isn't really from a particular area that you thought they were. So before you're shelling out money for tickets, you want to have a detailed idea of what you want to do so that then you will spend your money effectively. Now I want to talk a little bit to those of you who are genealogists that are wanting to do the research that you need to do to prepare for your trip, because we all know that success favors the prepared. You need to do all the research that you can do prior to going. Now, how do you do that? Like I mentioned before, location is important. So you're going to be wanting to look for deeds. You're going to be looking for city directories, tax records to show you the particular township they lived in. Draft cards can give you an address of where somebody resided. You're looking for any type of records that will give you the actual residences. Oh, and we can't forget census records. Census records had addresses on many of them. So you want to be looking at that type of information, and you want to be making sure that you include the specific information in your family trees and in your documentation. Sometimes when we save a census record, we don't note the actual physical address that they lived at. And you can, in your description, or every program is a little bit different, you can add that information in. Put all that information in regarding the people that you're going to be looking at in your location. Pay attention to your records. Look at the image. I say this all the time. It's like my number one thing. Look at the image. Look at the image. The image will provide you with clues. There will be more information in the image than what you might see in the indexed information. So look at those images. Also, look at their children. Even if those aren't your direct ancestors, you want to look at the children that they had and kind of see what happened to them, because sometimes you're going to get some of your information from the other children that maybe your direct ancestors didn't provide you. That's good research strategy, period. So repositories are finally opening up again, which gives you the opportunity to learn more about your ancestor in the actual place that they lived. A lot of things are digital today. Yes, it's wonderful, love it, so grateful for it. However, there's still a lot of records that are only found on location. And so if you're trying to research your family, a genealogy research trip may be exactly what you need to get some more of the interesting details about your family. Make sure that you research the repositories, that's libraries, historical societies, other places that hold records in the areas that you're interested in. And there's two main places that I would recommend that you look at. The first is the FamilySearch Wiki. On the wiki pages, they will list the historical societies and the repositories that are in the area that you're interested in. Here's an example of a particular county and the different things that are available in their community. The next thing I would recommend that you look at is ArchiveGrid. ArchiveGrid is a great listing of repositories in a particular area. It's shown by a map like this. And so you can zoom into a particular area and focus on what is available in that area. Now remember, records in the United States can be held in a town, in the county, or on the state level. So that's something that you want to keep in mind when you're thinking about the different records that you might be interested in. Our big step 2, further preparation for your trip. And again, if you've hired a professional genealogist, they should be doing all of this for you. But if you're doing it yourself, you want to call the different repositories that you want to visit in advance. You want to go and you want to know what they have available there. You want to identify the records that you're most interested in, because sometimes they require a few days to a week or so to pull a record. It may not be available. You may not be able to walk in and ask for a record and have them produce it for you. Sometimes they need advance notice. That's why all this preparation is so important. So you want to talk to somebody. They'll be super great and give you good information. Ask them about the records that you're interested in. You also want to talk to them about the rules that they have, and sometimes these are available on the websites, but it's also a good idea to ask the person that you're speaking with, because they may have pointers for you, like where is a good place to park, and even places to go eat and things like that they can provide for you. But you want to know what their rules are regarding what you can bring into the repository. And most of them have some pretty specific rules. So you want to know those types of things. Can you bring in your computer? Most of them require that you only bring in pencils and not pens. Just stuff like that. You want to know what those rules are. Now, what's on my list? What are the things that you have to have with you? At least this is my list. These are the things that I like to have with me when I visit a repository. The first thing is I always bring my computer. I have my information on my genealogy digitally. So I can look at my tree online or in my computer. I can see the records that I've already saved if I've forgotten something. I do bring printed information with me because for me, it's easier, but I don't print out everything. Otherwise, I have so many pages that I never actually look at them. I try to keep things simple. And so I usually have a pedigree chart that is kind of my family tree. And I also, and the families that I'm particularly interested in, I'll sometimes print out a family group sheet, which is a sheet of the parents and all of their children. So I know all those names and they're handy for me, because sometimes I'm looking through something that's in like a local library, and maybe I want to look for some of the other children's names and see if I find other things. And I want to have those names handy for me. So I do bring some things that are printed, but I always bring my computer as well. The next thing that I make sure that I bring with me is pencils, because like I said before, most repositories don't let you use pens. They want you to use pencils. And I always bring, I bring usually at least 2 flash drives. I bring my phone, I bring my power cords for my phone and my computer, and I also bring a backup battery for my phone. I do bring change for copies because I may need to make a photocopy of something. And I also bring change for parking meters. So I always bring some change with me. And I would recommend that you bring a mask, because a lot of repositories are still requiring masks in them. Lastly, I would really recommend that you bring a research log. And the reason that you want to do that is you want to note all of the things that you've looked at, whether they were things that produced information for you or things that didn't. Both of those are good types of information. And you don't want to go back and do it all over again. So research logs are a good thing, but especially on a research trip, you want to have a research log and you want to note every single thing that you looked at. And then of course you want to bring water, aspirin or Tylenol, you know what I mean? Like just kind of a little go thing of things that you might need while you're traveling, but that's kind of a traveling thing. So we've talked about repositories. What are some of the other fun things that you can do in a place that you're visiting when you're going to see your ancestral home? I really recommend that you go physically visit all of the locations where they lived, even if their house was taken down or rebuilt or whatever. I have gone to the farms that my family has lived at, and just to stand there and look over this farm and look over this land, I think about my family working that land, and I'm not a farmer. It just brings me a sense of closeness to them. And it's pretty powerful. I also want to walk around the town, particularly the old parts of town if they still exist. And I think about my family that have lived there. If they owned any businesses, I try to find those or find where they used to be. I just like to get a feel for the area that they lived. I definitely make trips to historical museums and things like that where I can learn more about what was happening in that community in various points of time. And then my other thing, when we talked about repositories, always go visit the local libraries. I've had great experiences in visiting local libraries in little rural towns, and I've had them have these collections of materials, old newspaper clippings that may not really exist anymore, all kinds of stuff that I've not been able to find in other places that just gave me so much information that I didn't have before. So always visit those local libraries. And those local libraries will also have photographs and other images probably, or maybe books about the town that as it existed, and let's say your family lived there in 1830. So anyway, check out those local libraries. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you and you are ready now to prepare for your next genealogy research trip. Finding your ancestral home is really a wonderful experience, and don't be shy, go for it. Have a wonderful time, good luck on your trips, and please, would you comment on this video and let me know if you have taken a research trip and how your experience went, and maybe provide some pointers for somebody else, as well as put in the comments where you want to go, where it is that you want to go, and maybe somebody that's been there can give you some great suggestions, one of the other viewers. So let's have some great comments in there where everybody can share the places that they want to go and the places that they've been. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you so much for watching the channel. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.